Hey, Lila, it's so good to see you. I think it's been a really
Hi.
long time, definitely
Yeah,
since
too
before
long,
your Dallas days. So I hope
for
things are
sure.
warm down there. Here up in
Oh, things
Jersey,
are
things,
beautiful and outside, you know. It's been too long since I've seen anybody.
yeah, being outside is definitely something we need to be doing more of. Up here in Jersey, it's been kind of cold and wet for a long time now. So we've got like a double whammy. But anyway,
Yeah.
we are here to talk about an important topic of disaster proofing our life in a way, because COVID, as you know, has thrown all of us for a loop. And with your particular expertise in communication, I'd love to be able in a short while to get there and talk about what we could be doing from a communication standpoint that will help us, because frankly, we have, it seems, every decade or so, some kind of major disruption that affects everybody.
Right?
And then we've got
Yeah,
personal disruptions as well, things that happen
constantly.
on a
Yeah.
personal, private level that we kind of like have to be thinking about. And so I'm curious, before we get into all of that, if you could just tell us a little bit about how COVID has changed really your life. And while you're there, imagine if you can, from a futuristic standpoint, as you're thinking ahead, what do you think are the implications for us moving forward?
So far I've been impacted in that I'm a very social person. So I have spent a lot of my time over the last few years, especially traveling all over the world, traveling constantly to new places, seeing lots of people, doing in-person events for speaking and leading workshops. I get a lot of hugs at those things. And I guess I didn't even really realize what an impact that had on me. Yeah, thank you. I could use a hug. It just seems so silly to say out loud, but physical touch is one of my top two love languages. You can guess what the other one is, right? But I just miss like human touch and
Yeah.
closeness. So it's been really hard for me as a very social person to feel removed from the social situations I feel most comfortable in.
If I may jump in for a second, because
Yeah.
we're like dealing with the opposite issue in a sense. Not only am I introverted, so it's not as much of an issue for me personally, but
Mhm.
also the fact that I'm home with, I mean, thank God, with my wife and 6 kids, we're all here. So we had the Passover
Yeah.
season
Thank
together,
God
we
it's
had
you and not
holidays
me.
together, but we're like all on top of each other, you know?
Yeah.
So in many ways, so I kind of have to feel for and really get into the mindset of people who unfortunately have had to be either by themselves or just without their more robust social network and their
Yeah.
capacity to do the things you're
Right.
describing.
So it's just you and your wife and 6 kids.
We're just all here. We're just all
Wow.
here. We're sheltering in place and killing each
Hmm.
other at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
take us a little bit down the road. What are you projecting the reality for folks moving forward? It's difficult to imagine a full restoration of normalcy, whatever that means.
Oh, I don't think we're
Um,
looking at that.
yeah,
Yeah. As and any time that there's some kind of a big shift in your life, even if somebody close to you dies or is born or reaches some kind of a life milestone, for one person in your life, you are shifted and you become more reflective. You look around and take inventory of your own life, your own processes, and check in with yourself.
yeah,
Now we're experiencing that check in en masse. Everybody in the whole world is checking in with themselves right now to see what they want to be doing going forward, finding more meaning and less meaning in some of their everyday activities. And so I think every person's individual normal is going to change as we've been confronted with our real values during this time.
yeah. That's a very powerful point, and nobody really knows what that looks like. But I do believe the idea that you shared about being more reflective. You know, I think our values have really pivoted in many important ways, and maybe we can't sustain them forever because we do have to go back to work, and we can't necessarily have the same degree of family time, social time, some of the other things
Sure
that
you
maybe
can.
we've been doing more of, the reading, the me time,
I
the
don't know. I think
exercise.
that that's always our choice.
Yeah,
Especially those of us who've continued to work, and you and I work for ourselves, right? So we especially have been confronted with, we have been making choices for how to spend our time. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to spend our time going forward in a way that aligns at least as much with our values.
Yeah, it's a powerful point. And I think that if we had more time, I would love, frankly, if this was like a podcast or something, I'd be unpacking that with
Yeah,
you quite in depth. And
we can
maybe
go down this hole forever. Yeah,
right, we'll go down the rabbit hole, really discuss it. Because you are right. I mean, we do make choices. And I think without question, we have to really, instead of at least sort of automatically reverting to what pre-corona looked like, even if we had the opportunity to do so, we do need to be asking ourselves, what parts of this do I want to hold on to? And
yeah,
what parts of this, am I willing to kind of let go on? And everybody's going to
exactly,
make their own decisions. And that's
for
something else you
sure.
just have to be personally
Well,
comfortable.
those decisions are where we start with intentional communication. So understanding first what are our values, how important to all of the areas of our lives. And then with that awareness, then we can begin to communicate fully with intention. And so that's where I pick up.
And that is, yeah, that's a perfect segue into where I really wanted the conversation to ultimately wind up, which is from your perspective, COVID was really tough for a lot of folks, and there's no way to live in a bubble and not be affected at all. However,
Right.
there are some things that we could be doing, at least as we think about the future and how we can deal with disruption, deal with challenge. And I do think communication is an important piece of it. It's about relationship building, it's about branding. There's a lot that obviously you touch on. And just, I know that is probably something you could talk about for a really long time and add so much depth to, but in a concise way.
I could, but it's actually so simple,
Go ahead.
like one of the things that we can take as an immediate learning from this is that disaster confronts us with all of our needs at once, and they all feel very pressing. So the awareness of all of those needs is actually a great gift, a huge blessing to have the visibility into the things that have to be communicated, because so much right now is missed. There are miscommunications, there are technical difficulties, there are misunderstandings, there are varying expectations, and whether people meet them or not. So as those things come up, basically anything that makes you want to tear your hair out has a communication answer. So you just have to find out what that question is. Why do I feel like tearing my hair out in this moment? Well, maybe the answer is, I wish my teammate could have read my mind and discovered blank. I wish my child would understand that the boundaries are blank and this is what's expected. My spouse is about to tear their hair out because I forgot to blank. If only
Excellent.
I could have been reminded by blank, right?
I
So
love the
we're like,
example. I
yeah,
really do, because it's not only preparatory, which is in many ways the intent of this series that I'm doing, but it's also in the moment. You've taken us to
yeah,
when you're in the moment, when things are not going well, and you've got so many new things to work through and deal with. How can you utilize communication in a more powerful way? And how could you be
exactly.
mindful of how other people are responding to your communication
Yeah.
to make it better?
I
Wow.
think that's a perfect way to say it. It's just in the moment, the things come up, and you ask yourself the question, how could communication help in this moment?
Yeah,
If you're in a moment of frustration, almost any moment of frustration that's interpersonal can be solved with communication.
that's
So if
right.
you just ask yourself the question, you're in a really good place. In terms of being prepared for future disaster, as you go through a day that is not disaster ridden, you can ask yourself, is this going well? Is this going poorly? And if it's going well, what had to be communicated in order for this to happen? And take note, really make almost a manual for every aspect of your business, of your life. We all have processes, whether they're domestic or professional,
Yeah.
right? At home, you have many communication processes. Certainly, if you have 6 kids, you must have
I need it
at
more
least
than anyone.
6 million. Right.
So be
Yeah.
prepared,
And
be
each one of them is their
mindful,
own person.
be reflective. I'm hearing all of those. Yeah, I really
And
wish
each
we
one
could
of your
talk.
6 kids is like their own personality.
There is no question about that. There's
Yeah.
absolutely no
So
question.
they need different things from you. You
Yeah,
have a different set of rules for communicating with each one of them,
yeah,
and they with you.
that's right. That's right. I really wish we could talk longer, but it's obvious that Lila is the go-to person when it comes to communication. So I wish you much continued, hopefully safety and well-being
Thank you.
during this
Same to you.
difficult time. physical and emotional and all of that, because we all are struggling in that way. Thank you for finding the time to get on the call with me, Lila. It's great to reconnect, and hopefully we can
Likewise.
not be so distant the next time we connect. But
Yes.
nonetheless, thank you for sharing your wisdom. And like I said, I'm really glad that you were able to share this, excuse me, this insight with all of us.
My pleasure.